So my name is Deanne Anderson. My parents, Ellen and Arliss Erickson, owned Nelson Drug from 1969 until 2003. And I was fortunate to work with my dad from 1986 until 2003 when he sold to Thrifty by Drug. And I'm just going to share a few of my memories from the store here, although most of my memories are from the people that I connected with here. But I do have some things I'd like to show you, probably starting with this typewriter. Probably the most vivid memory I have of my dad in the store is coming down here maybe after school or in the summertime, and if he wasn't sitting at his desk, he was standing here in front of his typewriter, and he typed like this, 2 fingers, and I'm sure he typed thousands of prescription labels that way. I can still hear it in my head when I stop to think about it. And I thought maybe I would show you a little bit how prescriptions were processed. Of course, from the early 1900s when the store opened, they compounded everything. They didn't have a bottle to pick off the shelf and count and pour. They compounded it. I've done very little compounding in my life, but I'll show you how we did it. Probably in the 70s, or my dad did it in the 70s. So, person would come in with a hard copy prescription, like you've all seen. And actually, these are from the first ones that were ever brought into the store in 1901. I can't even read them, sadly, but prescription would come in. We would type out the label accordingly, and when they compounded, if they needed to weigh anything, this is a balance, a couple old balances that we would put a weight on, and then we would measure the appropriate weight of the chemicals that we needed and mix them accordingly. Like I said, we didn't do that. We would just count out, put the label on our bottle, and away we'd go. The prescriptions, we would put on a spindle, and when we got to 100, we would bundle them up. And I guess in the 1900s, this is how they filed them. And later on, we used old cigar boxes. If you've seen old pictures of the store, the original store, they sold a lot of cigars in the day. So we had a lot of cigar boxes, and when we closed up the store, there were hundreds of them that we had to dispose of. This brings back some memories. This must have been one of our Christmas gifts that we gave away. I've got a ton of these at home that I'm not sure what I'm going to do with, but it's a nice memory. Another memory, for us old timers might remember something called a Cardui calendar. I learned to despise these things because my dad gave them away at Christmas time, and in November people would start calling the store asking if we had these yet. And they called, and then they started coming in from all over the county. And so my dad had to order a lot of these, and they were kind of expensive. But apparently what people liked was on the back page there was a gardening and a fishing guide. And I guess it must have been pretty accurate because this thing had a good reputation. All right, so I was going to show you our work counter, which I always just took it for granted. I didn't think it was anything special, but so many people would come back and look at this and think it was so beautiful. We stored all of our bottles and labels and things, and in this drawer you can see we've got little labels and stickers that no one ever threw away. These must go back all the way to the early 1900s. I never used them when I worked here. But they're quite fascinating. Lots of different chemical names that I guess I recognize glycerin and castor oil, Epsom salts, a few different things. Lots of poison stickers. That's kind of a scary thought for pharmacy, but anyway, fascinating. And the countertop here was really quite beautiful till I walked in one day and I saw my dad cleaning it with Comet abrasive cleaner, which is most likely what took the finish off of here. And then back in the 60s and 70s, when smoking was not really a big deal to most people, if my dad didn't have an ashtray handy and he was smoking, he would lay his cigarette right here. And you can see that he has left his mark here. So not a great memory, but it's kind of a cool one for me anyway. There's turmeric. So here are some of the chemicals that were left here in the store. Once again, nothing was ever thrown away, it appears. So these were all compounding chemicals used in the early 1900s. Sadly, I don't know much about any of them. There's turmeric. Apparently they use that. Mustard seed, dill seed, anise seed. Lots of cough preparations here. But no ingredients listed, which kind of fascinates me. As you know, I don't know that I would want to take something. There was a lot of trust in those druggists back there, but they were truly chemists. Funny story. When our stores closed and we had to clean out everything out of the building here, there was a ton of chemicals left in the basement. And so I had to contact the hazardous waste people, and I had to sort everything out and document it. But first I had to get it up from the basement. And I recruited my husband Scott to help me. And I can still picture him putting all these chemicals in a box and carrying them up the stairs, and I would hear everything rattling as he was walking up the stairs, and I was just hoping he didn't break anything. Well, little did we know that amongst those chemicals were some explosive chemicals that even upon moving them could have exploded. We didn't know that at the time, but after the hazardous waste people got my list of chemicals, they called and were a little shook up, and anyway, we needed to have the bomb squad out here to take care of the chemical, and actually they came not once but twice. But the good news is that everyone was okay, and I guess it makes for a good story to tell. I'll just show you some of the bottles that we found downstairs. These are not probably such hazardous type of things, but more interesting. Sarsaparilla compound. I guess they use that for flavoring, and also wild cherry. Probably went in some cough syrups. And up here, there's more turmeric, menthol crystals, salicylic acid, which we still use in compounding different dermatologicals, benzocaine, mag oxide, sodium salicylate. I love this bottle. I don't know what lactosum is, sugar maybe. Sucrose. These little guys are pretty cute. There's one from John Nelson. Druggist. They were all called druggists back then. Eucalyptal oil, I think, was in there. And potassium, quinine sulfate, phenobarb. I don't know. Would have been fun to be a druggist back in the day, I think. Here's a bottle that was found and brought into the museum. It says The Druggist, John Nelson, Lake Park, Minnesota. That's a pretty neat keepsake. So here are some antique over-the-counter items that they sold in the probably in the early 1900s and probably into the mid 1900s as well. I remember the Lydia Pinkham compound. That's for women and their change of life symptoms. We had some stomach distress tablets for heartburn, and has many of the same ingredients that you find in those remedies today: magnesium, calcium, bicarbonate, some Sloan's liniment, I guess, for muscle aches. Has methyl salicylate and turpentine oil and oil of camphor. So some of the same ingredients as today. And magnesium citrate, which I don't think we would want to drink today. It looks like it has not aged well, but this was used for stomach distress. Citronesia, it was called. And some old shaving brushes and cream, red pepper rub. I'm not sure I want to use that. So yeah, just some of the items that were left here, and now we're just still learning, I guess. So this is the safe that was in the store for as long as I can recall. Apparently, someone did try to break into the safe. You can see how the metal here has been squished together on the bolts. They never did get into it. And the safe will never be moved, I don't think, because of the weight of it. I can't remember how much it weighs, but it's impossible to move. We were looking at, it says the Carry Safe Company, and it says non-deteriorating tear gas. Just wondering if anyone has any idea what that means. Is there tear gas in the safe? The store was also broken into when my dad owned the store, and I remember they took, people would bring in their films to develop pictures, and until the truck would come to pick up the film, we stored them in a plastic bag, and whoever broke in the store took the plastic bag full of everyone's film and then started taking everything else that they wanted. And so they got away with quite a bit of stuff, and most importantly, a lot of pictures that people weren't too happy about losing. But other than that, we were pretty lucky all those years. So, okay, so I wanted to show a picture of Nelson Drug back in the early 1900s. I'm not sure how well you can see it, but it was absolutely beautiful, in my opinion. Had the tin ceilings and the wood floor, and the display case full of cigars over here, and there's jewelry over here, and then these walls full of shelves of all of those compounds you have seen. And then these display cases, when my dad remodeled the store in 1971, he donated them to the Historical Society. And they spent many years over at the Amdahl Museum in Lake Park here. And now they're back here and they're building where they belong. So that's kind of a neat story about them.